Ezra Blackwood had only lived on Willow Lane for 3 days when the trouble first began. After an exhausting double shift at the sheriff's department, he came home hoping for a quiet night. He heated leftover pasta, fed his old hound, and let the soft hum of the ceiling fan lull him into comfort. But just as he settled into bed, a sharp, relentless pounding echoed through the hallway. Startled, he grabbed his robe and opened the door, only to find an agitated woman glaring at him with crossed arms and a clipboard clutched like a weapon. She introduced herself sharply as Karen Bramwell, the president of the Willow Lane HOA, and without waiting for acknowledgement, launched into accusations about suspicious noises coming from his home. Ezra blinked in confusion, assuring her that nothing unusual had happened. Karen, however, was unfazed. She leaned forward, speaking as if delivering a verdict rather than a complaint. She insisted she heard loud banging, possible construction, and rule violations. Ezra politely explained he had been asleep and that no work was being done. Karen, offended by his calmness, demanded access to inspect his interior for compliance. Ezra refused, reminding her that a private home was not subject to surprise intrusions, but Karen only stiffened further. She warned him that if he didn't cooperate, she would escalate the matter immediately. Ezra tried remaining respectful, but she abruptly turned and declared she would contact the authorities to deal with him properly. Before he could respond, she marched down his walkway, her voice rising dramatically as she spoke into her phone. Ezra stood at his doorway, bewildered that his first encounter with the HOA president had turned into a threat. His dog pressed gently against his leg as distant sirens became faintly audible in the night. The distant sirens grew steadily louder, washing over Willow Lane like an approaching storm. Ezra stayed on his porch, arms loosely folded, not because he expected trouble but because he knew how misunderstandings could snowball when emotions ran high. Karen stood several houses down, pacing in a tight circle near her mailbox while speaking animatedly into her phone as if giving a crucial witness report. Porch lights flicked on one by one across the street as curious neighbors peeked out to watch the commotion. Within minutes, a patrol car rolled to a stop in front of Ezra's home. 2 officers stepped out, Officer Hale and Officer Ramirez, both younger deputies who recognized Ezra instantly but approached with professionalism. Hale shot him an apologetic glance before addressing him formally. "Deputy Blackwood, we received a call about a disturbance and possible trespassing situation. Mind telling us what's going on?" Before Ezra could answer, Karen rushed over, pointing at him dramatically. "That's him. He's lying about who he is, he's violating HOA codes, and he refused an inspection. There were loud noises, and I don't feel safe with him here. You need to remove him immediately before he causes more trouble." The officers exchanged looks, then turned to Ezra. He calmly explained the situation. He had been asleep, no noise, no construction, no violation. He showed his identification, badge, and housing documents. Karen scoffed loudly, claiming anyone could fake paperwork. Ezra didn't respond to the jab. Instead, he addressed the officers respectfully, detailing each step of the encounter. As he spoke, neighbors drifted closer, listening. Officer Ramirez asked Karen whether she had witnessed an actual crime or threat. Her answers were vague, slipping into personal complaints and HOA jargon. The officers' confusion grew. Ezra remained composed, letting the facts speak for themselves while Karen's indignation steadily escalated into frustration. A heavy silence hung in the air as Ayan, Sarah, and Lena returned to the abandoned warehouse. Elder Mirage's warning echoed in their minds, yet curiosity and responsibility pulled them forward. The transmitter sat in the center of the floor like a sleeping beast, wires tangled around it, dust coating its metal surface. The moment they stepped inside, the faint hum returned, vibrating through the floorboards and traveling up their legs. The runes on Lena's key glimmered softly, pulsing in rhythm with the sound. Sarah knelt by the transmitter, her fingers hovering hesitantly over the cracked dials. "It's responding to us," she whispered. Ayan swallowed, feeling a strange pressure in his ears as though something was waiting, listening. Together, they reconnected cables, tightened bolts, and rewired the power source while Lena kept the key close, sensing it was meant to be used at a crucial moment. As they worked, the hum grew louder, shifting into something melodic, a distorted, otherworldly tune. Finally, a small panel on the transmitter slid open with a metallic click, revealing a narrow slot perfectly shaped for the brass key. Lena's heartbeat quickened. She glanced at the others, who nodded reluctantly. With trembling hands, she inserted the key and turned it. The warehouse lights surged, casting long shadows, and the transmitter erupted in a brilliant flash. The air rippled. A silhouette materialized on the old monitor, first static, then shape, then form. A spectral figure stepped forward, translucent but undeniably human-shaped. Its voice resonated through the building, layered and echoing, as it whispered, "You have freed me." A gust of warm air swept through the warehouse, and the entity's form dissolved slowly, as if drifting into the walls, the sky, the world itself. The transmitter powered down, finally still. When Ion returned to the radio station later that night and switched on the console, there was no static, no whispers, only a soft, calming tone. The warehouse felt colder than the night outside, as though the walls themselves were holding their breath. The old transmitter continued to emit a faint hum even after the voice faded, and none of them dared touch it again. Ion steadied his breathing and searched the dusty shelves stacked with abandoned equipment. Sarah inspected a rusted metal cabinet, finding yellowed papers and handwritten notes filled with cryptic symbols matching the runes on Lena's key. The discovery deepened the unsettling feeling in the room. Lena found a photograph tucked between two broken clipboards. It showed a group of stern-faced men and women standing proudly next to the very transmitter they had just activated. On the back, written in faded ink, were the words, "The Echo Circle, 1952." Ion felt a shiver crawl up his neck. He remembered stories from his grandfather about a strange society that used radio waves to speak to the unseen, but he dismissed them as exaggerations. Now those tales felt disturbingly real. Hoping for more answers, they sought out the oldest resident in town, Elder Mirage, who lived in a small house cluttered with antiques and dusty records. When shown the photograph, his hands trembled. He revealed that his grandfather had been part of the Echo Circle, a secretive group that believed certain frequencies could open pathways to entities not bound by physical form. According to him, the last attempt to use the transmitter ended in chaos, and the group disbanded, claiming they had trapped something in the static. Before they could learn more, the old radio in Mirage's living room turned on by itself. First came static, then the familiar whisper, "We are still here." The lights dimmed, and the voice grew stronger, calling each of their names one by one. The room vibrated with a low, resonant hum. Sarah grabbed Ion's arm, whispering that the frequency wasn't random, something was communicating intentionally. When the voice uttered, "Restore the gateway, th." Ion, Sarah, and Lena gathered around the studio desk, staring at the mysterious brass key as if it might start speaking on its own. Its surface glinted under the dim radio booth lights, the engraved runes forming strange looping patterns that didn't match any language they recognized. Lena admitted she almost didn't bring it. She felt oddly reluctant to touch it again, as if the key carried a quiet pull she couldn't explain. Sarah suggested they examine it somewhere with better lighting and tools, so they moved to her workshop, where she kept microscopes, scanners, and an array of gadgets. Under the strong lamp, Sarah noticed something peculiar. The runes weren't merely etched, they seemed carved with precision far beyond typical hand tools. Even stranger, the metal felt slightly warm. When Ion lifted it, he felt a faint vibration like a soft internal hum, matching the hidden frequency from the strange broadcast. Sarah fetched a high-lumen flashlight to look through the key's hollow center, jokingly calling it a fantasy movie moment. But the joke died instantly when a small beam refracted inside the key and projected faint glowing lines onto the desk. The lines formed a crude, fractured image. After several attempts, Sarah managed to angle the light perfectly, revealing a complete projection, a map. It showed their town, but not as anyone had seen it. Certain buildings glowed faintly. A symbol shaped like an eye marked the outskirts near an abandoned warehouse. "This is impossible," Sarah whispered, tracing the glowing lines. Driven by a mix of fear and fascination, the three decided to follow the map. The night was unusually silent as they drove out of town. As they neared the warehouse, the radio in Ion's car suddenly switched on by itself, playing the same haunting frequency. When they stepped inside the dusty, forgotten structure, a cold draft passed through them. An old transmitter sat in the center, lifeless but intact. The moment Lena touched it, every lie,